My name is Sarah Zahab. I'm a registered kinesiologist and a clinical exercise physiologist. I'm the co-owner of Continuum Fitness and Movement Performance in Westboro. We offer personal coaching, massage therapy, and athletic therapy. My goal to help you with being active is really to obtain some tips and strategies to help you year round. So not just in the winter. I know that winter's coming to an end, hopefully, soon. And so, hopefully these tips that we're going to cover today are going to help you to become active this winter, in winters to come, but also year round. And so today, just to give you a little overview, we're going to be reviewing the Canadian guidelines for exercise. I really wanted to emphasize some different benefits of exercise because I think when it comes to benefits, we sort of just focus on one or two. And then including some strategies on how to incorporate movement into your day and really trying to make it as simple, accessible, and doable, as possible for you. We're going to cover off a few exercises that you can do right at home. And if you have any questions, even throughout, you can type them up in the chat box or just unmute yourself at the end of the presentation and ask your questions at the end. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have. So to start off, I wanted to share just a few statistics with you. We know that most Canadians don't meet the recommended levels of physical activity. And especially when it comes to our youth, 9 out of 10 children aren't meeting the Canadian physical activity guidelines. And I know that the pandemic has really affected a lot of people's activities. I saw some US statistics that showed that some people were more active depending on their demographic and age range. But a lot of people have become a little more sedentary, just with the added stresses of being in the situation that we're in right now. And we know that excessive sedentary time can increase our risk of certain conditions like mental health issues and just poor physical outcomes. And so I really wanted to try and make it as easy as possible to get us to start to change the language around activity, our relationship with exercise, and how we can become a little more active to reap some of the amazing benefits that physical activity can offer. So we know that health benefits can be obtained actually from very small doses of activity. So there have been studies that show that even as little as 30 seconds of physical activity can be beneficial for the cardiovascular system, for overall lymphatic systems. And certainly when it comes to the Canadian guidelines, they recommend a minimum of 10 minutes or more. But we know that you can actually reap some benefits from being active in very short bursts of activity. So the saying that it all adds up or it all counts certainly rings true for exercise. I think we sort of have this block or this mindset that, we need to set aside an hour a day or 90 minutes or whatever it is a day for physical activity, when if we have young children, busy work schedules, high demands on our life, we can start to think about little exercise snacks, little bits of activity that will add up at the end of the day and give us, allow us to reap the benefits that physical activity can offer. I'm a huge fan of outdoor physical activity, and we know that exercising outdoors can help boost your mood and reduce symptoms of mental health issues, whether that's the vitamin D factor, the sunshine, the fresh air, change of scenery. We'll encourage you to get outside when it's safe and when possible, to be able to, reap those extra benefits that physical activity can offer, whether it's just as simple as walking. It doesn't have to be running, but an easy walk can give you that little boost that you need. And it's also, noteworthy to mention, the relationship between exercise, physical activity, movement, and overall immune health. And so these statistics were actually taken directly from the Stats Canada page. And we know that there is a strong relationship between exercise and our overall immunity and our immune system, and the ability of our immune system, to stay strong and to fight off certain illnesses. And so I think it's really key. Sometimes we think the importance of all the factors, nutrition and hydration and supplementation, but exercise can play a role overall in boosting our overall immune health. So that was taken from the StatsCan page in case you're interested. So what are the Canadian guidelines for exercise? What are we supposed to be obtaining in terms of movement and exercise? Well, adults should be obtaining 115 minutes of moderate to vigorous physical activity per week. And that can be in bouts of 10 minutes or more. So you can do small chunks of 10 minutes, you can do longer chunks, but that is the goal that we're looking to obtain. 150 minutes of time per week being active, some of it moderate and some of it vigorous. The Canadian guidelines also recommend strength training or bone strengthening exercises 2 times per week. So the bone strengthening aspect or the strength training aspect is really key to help preventing certain conditions like osteoporosis and bone breaks. So increasing our bone density through exercise, weight-bearing, bone strengthening exercises can be very helpful in terms of our health as we age, our longevity. And we also know that one of the factors of longevity is actually measuring quadricep size. So we know that if you have larger quadricep muscles, you are more likely to live longer. So we know that quad strength is an indicator of mobility and function as we age. So think about the ability to sit on a toilet, sit down in a chair, get back up off of the toilet or the chair. A lot of those movements require quad strength, quadricep strength. So having enough muscle mass, especially since we lose muscle as we age, after the age 35, we start to lose muscle each year. So keeping our muscles strong, maintaining our muscle mass is going to be really, really important to help in terms of longevity, in terms of function, preventing breaks, preventing certain conditions. Now, if you have kids or know of kids, children age 5 to 17, they actually need more. They need 60 minutes of moderate to vigorous physical activity per day, and ideally from a variety of different activities. So it could be, playing, it could be structured sports, and they definitely need some of that vigorous intensity work and the strength work, not in the terms of strength training with weights, but more bone density, bone building, weight bearing activities. So through play can be considered, a strength portion. And, I'm a huge fan. I have 2 kids, age 9 and 12. We are huge fans of unstructured play. Our kids are not in a lot of structured activity. They spend a lot of time playing outdoors, in parks with friends outside, just playing, and I don't think it's necessary to have your child registered in like 60 minutes a day of, one day karate, one day gymnastics, one day this. But if that works for your child, I think that's excellent. But the unstructured play really counts towards their physical activity levels. And so I think it's important for kids to get some of that unstructured time, unstructured active time and play time, if they're up for it, if that's something that's part of their routine, to help with, not just being physically active, but from a mental health and other, health benefit perspective. We also know that more physical activity provides greater health benefits. However, one question in the last workshop, someone had asked about the signs of overtraining, or how do you know you're doing too much? And it's a really difficult question to answer because it depends on what else you're doing throughout the day. What other types of activities are you doing? What is your work situation like? Is your work very active and physical? Do you have a lot of high demands on your energy? We sort of need to take, all of that into consideration. But from a physiological perspective, signs of overtraining can be things like waking up with an elevated heart rate, or experiencing, overall fatigue, experiencing feeling a little more depressed, not being able to recover from workouts as quickly. I think there's maybe a small percentage of the population that may fall into the over exercising category. So if that's you, then you want to sort of think about those signs and symptoms of overtraining. Because I think we've used the term "listen to your body" for a lot of people, but sometimes we're kind of disconnected. We don't know what to listen for. So from a physiological perspective, those would be things to look for. But in general, more physical activity will provide more health benefits to a certain extent, until you become to a point where you might be overtrained. But I think that doesn't affect a lot of people. So again, we talked about, a lot of people think they need, an hour or 90 minutes a day, but really it can be done in, smaller chunks. We talk about those exercise snacks. And so, you can sort of split up your physical activity however you like, whether that's a half-hour walk 5 times a week, whether that's 10-minute chunks twice a day, if that's what you can manage. Or if you have a busy work schedule, maybe you spend more time exercising on the weekends, Saturdays and Sundays, or wherever your days off are. Those could be your higher volume exercise days, and maybe fit in another, shorter chunk throughout the week. If that, you sort of have to take a big look at your overall picture and figure out, when is this going to work for me? When can I fit this in? But it doesn't have to be, large amounts of time and frequent. It can be, split up in a way that makes sense for you. And when we're talking about the benefits of exercise, I wanted to spend a little bit of time just chatting about all the many things that movement and exercise can offer. But also, I think that we can become very, very focused on exercise or physical activity as a tool to lose weight, as a weight loss tool, or as a way to, burn off calories of foods that we should not have eaten. It's going to be, we're going to go for a run to burn off the piece of cake that I had, or I'm going to exercise because I need to lose 5 pounds. We know that exercise alone is not actually a great way to lose weight. It can be for a lot of people, but it is not a proven system alone. For many people, we see a lot of people who are exercising and don't, get the weight loss benefit. We also have to think about other things like nutrition and sleep and stress and hormonal balance. Like, those are all things that come into play, in the weight loss equation. And so I think, we need to sort of shift our language around exercise. And we know that we're supposed to be moving. Everyone knows that we need to exercise to be healthy. I don't think that's like a groundbreaking or a shocking revelation for a lot of people. I think we know that we need to exercise. But I also know, and I kind of equate this to other things, like I also know I should be, staying on top of my books so that come tax time, it's easy for me and painless, and I'm not scrambling to gather all of my receipts and plug everything into our software. And yet, year after year, inevitably come tax time, I am still scrambling and struggling. And, so I kind of equate, I think a lot of people have that maybe similar approach. Like, they know they're supposed to be exercising, but maybe it's just, and I think a lot of it has to do with the language, the relationship we have with exercise. Maybe you weren't strong in physical activity. Maybe something happened as a child. Maybe it just wasn't something you excelled at. Maybe it just wasn't something that you enjoy. So I find when we change the language around it, it's not I have to exercise, but I want to exercise to reap the numerous benefits. Maybe for you, it's if I exercise, I feel less back pain, or I have more energy, or, it's finding your why. Why do you want to do this? So there are numerous other benefits, not just potential weight loss. We work on strengthening our cardiovascular systems, our muscular systems, especially as we age. It's important to maintain the muscle mass that we have. The lymphatic system, which is really key. The lymphatic system can become very stagnant when we're seated or sedentary for long periods of time. The circulatory system, so there's so many benefits to exercise, not just one or two things. We also may have a boost of energy. A lot of people find, I don't have the energy to work out, but after a short, little 10-minute bout, they find, okay, I get a little boost of energy. I get a little more strength. We know that many people are more productive after exercise. And I worked in workplace fitness for many years. We worked in the workplace, providing fitness options, fitness centers, fitness activities for workers. And at the beginning, 20 years ago, it was difficult to prove that return on investment, where yes, someone's taking 30, 45, 60 minutes out of their lunch break to exercise, but does that turn into increased productivity and increased efficiency and effectiveness at work? And I think we are starting to see those ROI numbers where someone may take a short break in the day, but they're going to get just as much done, if not more done, than someone who's sitting and just sort of think about how you feel when you're slogging away at a project, or you get tired, you may not be as effective. So the increased productivity aspect can be really huge, especially when we're trying to justify taking time away from a project, a work day. And mood, we know that exercise can be a very effective strategy at dealing with mild to moderate depression. Some studies have shown that exercise can be just as effective as medication for treating mild to moderate depression. So very, very strong mood boosting aspects. And then from a physical perspective, alignment, I'm seeing in the last year, a lot more issues with people's backs and necks, just with maybe poor seated posture or poor ergonomic setups. So, we know that exercise can help to improve these things. Balance can be a huge factor, especially as we're aging. Walking requires a good amount of balance, and especially if we're walking in the winter on slippery surfaces, we want to ensure that we're stable. And so, exercise can help with improving that. There are also strong correlations between exercise and brain health. And so improving our memory, but also brain health. Exercise will boost blood flow to the brain. And so when we're looking at warding off certain diseases, exercise can be not just from a physical, body perspective, but for our brain health as well. And then improved sleep. I know that a lot of my clients, that is their why. They exercise to sleep better. Maybe these are people who have struggled with sleep, waking up throughout the night multiple times, difficult time falling asleep, but on the days that they exercise, or maybe especially on the days that they exercise outdoors, their sleep is improved. And the sleep can play a big role in a number of, recovery and hormonal balance and stress. I mean, it's such a huge, thing. And then we thought, decreasing our risk of injuries and strains, less risk of straining, certain joints, the back, the neck, muscle injuries. So we know that there's a lot of benefits from that perspective. And then there are very, very robust studies showing the link between physical activity and decreasing our risk of type 2 diabetes, heart disease, dementia, and some cancers. Robust studies showing the link. I mean, these are strong. These can be very strong motivating factors for a lot of people. especially if there is a hereditary component in your family or genetic component in your family for some of these diseases. We know that people who are fit are less likely to get heart disease. Same thing with type 2 diabetes. So, changing our language around why we do things, and maybe some of these have resonated with you, and maybe we can sort of shift around, I'm doing this to prevent heart disease, or whatever it is for you. But I think it has to move away from doing it as a form of punishment for eating, or doing it to lose weight. So there's my little rant. Now let's talk about strategies to help you succeed. And number one, I think we've all heard this, like plan exercise like appointments. Like you plan, you have appointments to go to the dentist or the doctor. Exercise is just as important, for your overall health. So it needs to be kind of prioritized and booked into your day. So whether at the beginning of the week, I'll sort of look ahead to my schedule. Okay, I'm going to do this on this day and this time, and kind of, where are you going to fit it in? Because we know that if you sort of say it's going to happen, the day sometimes gets away from you, and it's the end of the day, and sometimes we're tired, and it's like, oh, I didn't get to it. Planning, having a bit of that foresight, just like we have to plan our meals sometimes, can be beneficial. Setting SMART goals. So this is really key. So SMART stands for specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely. So if you are going to set a goal, ideally it is all of those things. It is specific. So you're not just going to say, okay, well, I'm going to start exercising to, lose, 30 pounds in 2 weeks. Like that's not realistic. You want to be able to be very specific with what you're trying to achieve and set those realistic goals for you. Make sure they're attainable. And I like the idea of measuring. Whether that is just jotting down how much time you did, from wearing one of these amazing wearable devices that track your wattage and your force production and, your heart rate and, all these fancy, things. I don't think it has to be that technical, but, wherever you are on the spectrum, just sort of keeping track and measuring enables you to look back and go, okay, I was doing this for this long and this much, and this is how I felt. And now, when you look back, you go, okay, I can do this and it's easier. So it's nice to see the progress. So a lot of people, I've gotten this question over the years that I've been doing this. I've been in the fitness industry for over 20 years. And I often get people asking me, what is the best exercise? What is the best cardio exercise? Is it running? Should I be running? And, run if you like to run. But if you hate running, I will never prescribe running to someone if they don't like to run. It's key to find something that you enjoy doing. And it may not be traditional. It may not be running. It may not be cycling. It may be something totally different, like dancing or, hiking in the woods, or just, a Pilates class that you love to take. Like it doesn't have to be in the box of what you think you should be doing. As long as you're reaping the benefits, you're elevating your heart rate, it's considered a moderate to vigorous, intense-based exercise, and you're obtaining your 150 minutes per week or more, then that's great. And you may have to go back and think about, okay, what did I love to do when I was younger? Maybe when you were a kid, you loved to swim, or when you were, younger and you played certain sports. Maybe there's a way to get back to something like that. Maybe we have to think back to, okay, what was that spark? What helped us to get, that motivated us to help us be consistent? And another one, find optimal time for exercise. So I have a lot of people that, that feel that they have to exercise first thing in the morning. And certainly there are some strong studies that show that morning exercisers are more consistent exercisers, and they're more effective at staying on track, and they're seeing the results that they want to see. Yet, if you are not a morning person, or if you are not a good sleeper, or if you are not someone who feels alive at 6 a.m., then how effective is your workout going to be? Maybe you're someone who can take time out of your day at noon, lunchtime, and get a workout done then because you need a break midday, and that works for you. Or maybe you're someone who needs a transition between end of workday and the beginning of home day. So we have a lot of people working from home now. And many people I'm hearing are finding it extremely difficult to shut off work and start their home life, to transition end of work to home. They're always checking their computer. They're checking their email at 7, 8 o'clock. Oh, it's right there. I'll just check this. So a strategy that a lot of my clients use is we have a short stretch or strength or short workout that signifies, okay, I'm done with my workday. I'm letting out some of this, the stress, this energy. I'm changing the scenery, and okay, done my workout. Got the endorphins. I feel good. Now I'm ready to just chill with the family or whatever it may be. So, but on the other hand, if you're noticing that, okay, you're giving yourself that 5 o'clock workout time, and day in, day out, week in, week out, it's not happening, then maybe you do need to shift your workout time to a morning, especially if you're a morning person. I'm not a morning person. I would never set an alarm for 5:30 to do a workout. That is just like crazy pants for me. I don't feel really awake until, I will get up early, but I will not work out early. It's just, my energy is not great. My mood is not great. I think it's just who we are. It's just me as a person. And so, midday, later in the day, even after work times are great because my energy is at its best. I know some clients were like, I will not work out past 3 p.m. because I am just a zombie. I'm crashed. That is totally fine. You have to know your body and figure out, okay, when are the best times? When is your energy best? How can I make this work into my day? And then finding your primary motivation or driving force. Like, what is it? Think back to when you were the most successful with exercise, and okay, try and look back and analyze what was in place, what allowed you, what worked the best for you. Was it signing up for a running race, signing up for a 5K that kept you on track? Was it working out with a buddy? There are many options to work out, like with Zwift, and all these virtual platforms. You can still work out with a buddy virtually, especially if you know someone's waiting for you or counting on you. That's a strategy that works for a lot of people. Maybe it's tracking your data. So using a Fitbit or using, some sort of wearable device to track, your heart rate and the time and, the steps that you've taken, and trying to sort of, look back and analyze that and keep, stay on track that way. So, figuring out what can drive you and what you need to get back to help you get there. And ideally, again, as we talked about, moving away from, exercise as a weight loss approach, and using it as, as a health strategy to help with the many other benefits that it can offer, whether that's, aging gracefully, avoiding injuries or avoiding certain diseases, or just reaping all of the other benefits it has to offer, like better sleep and mood and energy. And, if the aesthetics are a portion of it, that's great. But I think it's nice to focus on all of those other aspects. And I think the accountability can be important, whether you're accountable to a family member or whether it's through an online community. I think that helps a lot of people, whether you're working with a coach, signing up for classes, paying for something can be a huge accountability drive. When you sign up for a class and it's like, okay, well, I've paid for it, so I'm going to do it, so that can work for a lot of people. But you also want to be gentle, and we also want to think about progressing slowly. And this slow progression is something that's really hard for people, because I know there'll be times where we're very sedentary and we're just like, okay, we're fed up. That's it. We're back at it. 2 hours, 5 days a week. But often that ends up, turning into injury. And people get discouraged and then they stop. We know that long-term, that isn't the best strategy. Long-term, progressing slowly, even though it requires more patience and consistency, is, in my experience, the best strategy. So whether that's starting with 10 minutes a day and increasing from there, think about a baseline that you may already have. So if you can already walk 15 minutes a day, start with that, and then maybe add 5 minutes instead of doubling your time right off the bat. So think about those slow progressions and how you can manage that to help with reducing the risk of injury. Now, it is still winter, even though I feel like spring is coming a little bit, but it's March. And March is really, anything goes in March. So, we could be getting mild temperatures now, but in 2 weeks from now, it could be, minus 20. And that's just March here. But, when it is cold in the winter, this winter or following winters, these are some things to think about to help keep you on track. So I know there's a lot of outdoor exercisers that just don't run in the winter because it's too cold. But we have come a long way when it comes to technical garments and gear. These running jackets that are lightweight but warm and wick moisture and waterproof. Like, these are incredible garments that we can use to help us with maintaining our consistency. And you've maybe heard the term, like, there's no bad weather, just bad gear. Like, it's all about finding the right winter gear and experimenting with different fabrics. Like, for some people, merino wool is their best base layer, but for others, they like, other fabrics that works well for them. So you may have to test out different ones. Certainly layering can be a great strategy. So that you can stay warm, but remove additional layers if you need to. And here in Ottawa, we have access to some amazing stores like Mac and Bushteka, and it's just extremely knowledgeable staff. And I've often gone to them and asked questions, and they've shown me some crazy stuff. Like, oh my gosh, the little hand warmers, that you put in your mittens. That's been a life changer for us on ski days. It just means we can ski and enjoy skiing that much longer. There's battery powered heated boots. There is, so ask these pros, and they're happy to share, their tips and products that they have. So if you're not sure where to start, that may be somewhere to go. During the winter, when the days are getting a little bit longer now, but when the days are really short, I love the idea of just getting out when it's during daylight. So if you're an early morning or an after work exerciser and you get out and it's dark, maybe it's worth, shifting it once a week, or getting out for a short walk during those daylight hours to give us that boost, to give us that vitamin D hit. And, think about taking advantage of the milder days, and it's okay with skipping those super cold days. Like, my cutoff for me is like minus 20. So if it's colder than that, I typically don't go out or try a different activity. But if it's like minus 10 or minus 15, for me, I can layer up and go for a run, and that's okay for me. So, overall, I'm going to be consistent, but I'm okay with skipping some of those super cold days for me. It doesn't mean that I'm skipping the whole winter. It just means that I'm, modifying if it's just too cold. And then someone had another question about exercising safely outdoors. So if you're someone who's worried about slipping and falling on icy surfaces, we can invest in those, I think they're called yak tracks or spikes that attach onto your shoes and just give you that extra grip. Maybe on those icy days, you're going to take your walking poles out and use those for extra stability. Maybe you're going to stick to a clearer path. I know that there's paths that are cleared. I think everyone in Ottawa knows that the streets around the Parliament are always plowed first. So you get a lot of runners, on snowfalls that are going to run in that area, because we know they're going to be clear roads and clear paths. And so we know that there are certain areas that are cleared maybe quicker or a little bit better. So maybe it's just changing your route a little bit. And then trying to find different winter activities, find something that you enjoy. And it doesn't have to be like ice climbing, it can be snowshoeing or walking even. It doesn't have to be intense. So trying to find something, that you might enjoy. If you're used to if you're used to cycling and you can't cycle outdoors, or you don't want to, you don't have one of those snow bikes, it's just finding something that you can enjoy. And, in my 20 years of plus of experience, I've, I have come to see that the people who are the most consistent, the most successful in their exercise routines and seeing the results that they want to see are those who start small, who progress slowly, and who remain consistent. So if you're someone who just exercises twice a week, as long as you're consistently exercising twice a week, you will see results. If you're someone who just does exercise bouts of 10 to 15 minutes, as long as you're consistently doing 10 to 15 minutes, you will see results. So, thinking about, starting small, progressing slowly, and, being consistent. I love the idea of walking. I think it can be very accessible for most people. And I came across this interesting, it was NBC. They had said that walking was the most underrated exercise, on the planet. And I agree. I think walking can be really underrated. Anytime you're going to get that natural sort of undulating movement, walking, running, hiking, I think those are super powerful, effective, and functional movements for us. So maybe it's just about, okay, how do I sneak it in? Kids are at hockey practice. Okay, I'm going to go for a little walk instead of waiting in the car or sitting in the stands. At work, can I park a little bit farther? I have a lot of my clients use phone calls or, podcasts or listening to music time as walking time. So you plug in your phone, and if you're going to listen to a podcast, you're going to be walking. Or maybe it's something that you need to do as a family. Get everybody on board. Like, okay, let's go for like an after dinner walk. And I think it can help some people to track their steps, maybe at least at the beginning, to get a sense of what you're doing. And, it doesn't have to be 10,000. I've put 10,000 steps a day, but it can be 5,000 if that's where you're at. If you're at 5,000, then aim for that. Maybe slowly, progressively increase from there. And then another tip that I have is to automate movement whenever possible. So think about the things that you're already doing. So when my clients brush their teeth, for example, I use that as time for either stretching, maybe it's standing on one leg, balancing, it can be your single leg balance time. So you're automatically brushing your teeth. We can add in and automate movement during those times. So it's not an extra stress. You don't have to think about it too much. It's something that you're already doing. So think about where you can automate things where possible. And, if you like the idea of joining a group and love the group energy and dynamic, then maybe it's signing up for a class or a walking group when it's safe to do so. I know there are a number of walking groups in Ottawa out there, or maybe it's signing up for a race. So thinking about what motivates you. And if you need some external support, then hiring a coach for something a little more customized, or maybe it's for the accountability, can be beneficial as well. So Now we're going to cover just a handful of exercises, 3 exercises. I wanted to get something for the upper body, lower body, and core. So I'm going to show you these 3 different exercises, cover off the technique. But first, I wanted to show you the difference between 5 pounds of muscle and 5 pounds of fat. So take a look at that image. And we see that muscle is more dense. It takes up less space. A lot of my female clients, say, I don't want to strength train. I don't want to get big muscles. You won't get big muscles. It is really difficult to gain big muscles unless you're supplementing with some really questionable supplements and training intensely day in, day out with high volume. It's just very difficult. So most of us can benefit from maintaining and even increasing the muscle that we have. And so thinking about maybe beyond just cardiovascular exercise, but adding in some strength building exercises to help with, we know that the Canadian guidelines include 2 times a week of bone building exercises. And I think that's where a lot of people struggle. They're fine to go out and go for their walk or their run or do their exercise, but the strength stuff is a little more challenging for them. And maybe it's you don't know about the form, maybe it's you don't want to get injured. But if you're worried about getting big muscles, I can tell you that it's very difficult to get big muscles. So the first exercise, I'm just going to show you the videos first, and then I'm going to take my screen off of screen share and just show you in person. The first one is the squat, which we feel is super functional because it is something that you do often when you sit on the toilet or sit on a chair. And we look at people in many countries around the world where squatting is done even in the elderly. People are still squatting to use the bathroom or to work in the fields. So maintaining that hip mobility and strength is key for, function, especially as we age. So we're a really big fan of squats. And if you're someone who tends to feel the knees, I'm going to give you some tips to get it out of the knees. And a push-up can be a really good exercise for the upper body. I'm going to show you how to do it against a wall. It's an easier variation. But if you're interested in doing it on the knees, you're looking for a straight spine, keeping the head back, engaging the core, pushing up off the floor. And then a core exercise. A lot of times we think about core exercises done on the floor. But we're big fans of, the times where you need the core are usually when you're sitting or standing. So we're a big fan of using, challenging your core muscles off the ground, because that's usually when you need those core muscles the most. So, okay, I'm going to take you off of the screen share here. Let me see if I can figure that out. And okay, so stop screen share. So let's go through those exercises together. So the first one is the squat exercise. So I'm just going to bring my screen down a little bit, and I am going to spotlight me so it becomes a little bit bigger on your screen. Hopefully that's okay for everybody. I'm going to bring this view down a little bit. So the squat can be an excellent lower body and core exercise. And what we're looking for in a squat is we're looking to have the back and the shin angle parallel. So we don't want to bend further than our knee range will allow. So I'm going to bring this down a little more so you can see a little bit more of the shin angle. The shin angle is the angle of the lower leg. So when I bend, my shin and back angle is parallel. Okay, so not out of alignment. And I'm also thinking about pushing through my heels to come back up and squeezing the glutes. Your glutes are your primary hip extensor muscles. So you're going to think about sitting back in a chair and then squeezing your glutes, pushing through the heels to come back up. If my weight is in my toes, I'm going to feel the knees a little bit more. So I want to think about sitting back into my heels to help with engaging more of the posterior muscles like the glutes. we're still going to get the quads engaged. We're just going to put a little less strain off the knees. So I like to coordinate movement with breathing. You can have your hands out. You can have them by your sides. You can hold on to weights. You can put them across your chest, whatever feels comfortable for you. I like to think about inhaling to come down and exhaling to come back up. And that just prevents us from holding our breath, prevents us from using breath holding as a stabilizing strategy. So those are your squats. And those are something great to incorporate, a couple of times a week, whether you're using load or no load. So weights or no weights, just body weight. We can still benefit from using our body weight. And that is a type of exercise that would be considered a bone strengthening or a strength training exercise. Now, the next one I'm going to show you is the push-up. Now, the push-up is a great upper body exercise, but a lot of people find it challenging to work on the wall, on the floor, because it can be a very intense challenge. And if you don't have a lot of that upper body strength, or you have a shoulder issue or a neck issue or a back issue, doing it against the wall can be a good option. So we're going to start with our hands against the wall. And I'm going to bring this down just a little bit so you can see a little more of my legs. So hands are in line with the shoulders and wider than the shoulders. So they're not above the shoulders or below the shoulders. They're in line with the shoulders, and then I take them out a little bit wider. It's a little more comfortable on the shoulder joint. The core is pulled in so that I'm not arched and swaying the back. So really straight through the spine, and I'm going to lift up onto my toes. And that allows me to pivot at that point and keep a nice straight line from my toes to my head, lowering the chest to the wall, breathing out to push back up. So lowering down slow and then exhaling to come back. Bringing the chest down, but keeping the back in line with the spine. So not arching through the back and staying really supported. So this exercise is something that's going to challenge the shoulder muscles, the chest muscles, the tricep muscles, the back muscles, the core muscles. We're going to get a lot. And if you're up on your toes, maybe the calf muscles as well. So the push-up can be a great upper body challenge. And then the last one that I wanted to show you is a core exercise. So the core muscles are really important to help with stabilizing the back and supporting the body. 60% of our power originates from the core. And so having enough core strength is important for stability, balance, injury prevention. And the core muscles play, the deep core muscles play an anticipatory role in stability. They are anticipatory muscles, which means they're going to fire milliseconds before your arms and legs do. So when we talk about these anterior core muscles, there's 4 layers of the core, the abdominal musculature. Now there's lots of muscles that are comprised of the core in the back and above and below, but we're just going to sort of break down the abdominal muscles. We have the top layer that's called the rectus abdominis. That is your crunching muscle. It's responsible for flexion of the spine. Underneath that layer is the external obliques, and they run in like pocket directions. And your right external oblique is responsible for turning you to the left. So they're responsible for contralateral rotation or opposite rotation. Underneath that layer are the internal obliques. The fibers are in opposite directions, and they're responsible for same side rotation. So my right internal oblique will rotate me to the right. Underneath that layer is the transverse abdominis. And this is the muscle that I like to focus on mostly. It is responsible for compressing the abdominal cavity, for supporting the lumbar spine. It has an anticipatory role, which means before you move your arms and legs, the transverse abdominis is going to fire and provide stiffening support to the lumbar spine. So before you're going to kick a ball, those muscles are going to hug your spine and protect it. Before you slip and fall, those muscles are going to catch you and help prevent you from falling potentially. So training this deep core muscle can be really key at protecting the low back. and providing overall stability to the body. So certainly we can do work this exercise, on the floor, but I wanted to provide a seated. You can also do this standing option as well. So I'm just sitting on a chair. You can do this with me. You're going to think about closing the hip bones in the front. So the hip bones are going to close together. You're going to think about the muscle runs in this direction, just like a bicep runs in this direction. You contract it this way. The muscle runs in this direction. So you're going to think about bringing the sides of the hip bones in. It's also an exhalatory muscle. So you can just do a strong exhale and see if you can get a bit of a deep connection there. Once you've held everything in, like you're tightening up a tight belt, you're going to hold that contraction and we're going to try marching. So you're going to lift a leg lower and then switch sides. I'm not sure if you can see my legs here, but I'm just marching, switching sides. Now I'm trying not to twist or lean or dump the weight into my hip. And that requires some good core stability. So you're going to think about engaging the deep core muscles to help with supporting and stabilizing the whole lumbopelvic region. So you keep the core tight as you march to prevent excessive movement in through the back and hips. And so thinking about tightening, squeezing, holding while breathing, of course, is going to help to engage and challenge this muscle. So that is your seated supported march. That's going to challenge the transverse abdominis, deep core muscle. And I hope that you were able to get some good tips and strategies today to help you with, staying motivated, understanding the many benefits of physical activity, how you can stay active throughout the winter. Because, hey, if you can stay active in February, you can stay active at any point throughout the year, right? At any time. So I'm going to pop into the chat box, and I think that there have been a couple of questions. Oh, okay, black screen working now. Okay, so if there are any questions, feel free to unmute and ask, or pop them into the chat box, and I'm here if you have any questions. So I hope that you found this informative and helpful.